Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Pickett, she lays it off. Teresa Polias. It's an absolute peach. Ayres driving. What a hit from Melina Ayres. Wow. And Sam Kerr has a hat-trick. Meet him on 1-0. This is a bump fest. Someone's like a jump. So I bust them in the eye. And then I'll take the bump home. Feel it?
Against the odds, back-to-back, Melbourne Victory are your 2022 A-League Women's Champions. And here on Radio Dub, we're going to celebrate that feat with a very special guest. I'm Josh Parish. I've got Pokuah Frimpong with me as always. Pokuah, did you enjoy the grand final on the weekend?
No, I did.
It was a pretty exciting game.
It was a great game. And you know what? Joey Lynch tried to, say that I was going for other teams. And I said, no, Joey, I'm supporting everybody, and it was a great grand final to watch and some really fun goals. And I feel like we needed some more triumphant music for, our guests coming on. We needed to, really welcome her in.
Oh, come on. We've got the best theme music on the station. I can't change it now.
Surely, as she starts speaking, we... I
think we'll get taken down for copyright if we do that. But we are delighted to have Navy Blue legend, a real leader in the midfield, and she scored on the weekend in the decider. Amy Jackson joins us now. Amy, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And to be fair, I'm glad the music isn't too loud at the moment. I'm in recovery.
Yeah, you don't want to make the headache any worse. Tell us about your emotions on the day when that goal went in.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a surreal moment for me. I was fortunate enough to actually be able to play in the finals with everything that had happened in the lead up, and with the team just scraping through. I think we had this quiet confidence about us that we knew we could do well. We were very capable of doing well. It was just getting everybody on the right path and in the right mindset to do that. So, yeah, we got through the third team, beat the second team, and then we took on who I thought was the best team of the season in Sydney. To break that deadlock and get the first goal. And, yeah, it's something that I'll remember for the rest of my life, that's for sure.
It was sort of like a video game or something. You were going up, each boss is a little bit harder and you knocked them all off and did the impossible.
Yeah, we had to clock off one, and then we had the mega boss at the end that we had to...
Yeah. It's like a good Crash Bandicoot, game, good, but at least you won. Now, Amy, you scored in the grand final. So what's that moment like when that ball's coming towards you are you thinking, shit, I explained it.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm
Dump
sorry.
button. No, it's all right.
Sorry. Beep, beep. I'm about to score. Are you just focusing on just hitting it, just making some level of contact with it?
Look, when Kyra got the ball, I had a feel like I just knew that I had to be in a certain position at that moment because I knew that she was going to get the ball over. I don't know, call it intuition, I know we'd probably practice it. It was a set piece, and our assistant coach, he hones in on that. So we had done a lot of work in the lead up to that. And I think my position had actually changed for the final compared to where I normally was. So it was almost like it was meant to be. And when it came over, I was actually, really ready for it. And there's a photo where the defender is basically almost got her arm wrapped around me trying to get me down because I had got up and, really placed the header. So when I look at that, I just think, it actually happened, and sort of have to pinch myself a little bit because I think it kick-started us. We didn't score. We scored our second not too long after that and really started to gain a bit of momentum. So I can't really put it into words yet because it has sunk in, but I think it'll be next season or years to come when I'm sort of trying to explain that moment that I'll really get the articulate words that describe it.
Your role this season, you mentioned change for the final. It was changing all year, to be fair. With Kayla going down after the first game, I mean, that's a tough one for a midfielder to step in and deputise it at centre half. You know, you had that tough moment in the derby with the own goal as well. So it's been quite a journey for you this season.
Yeah, it has. I've had an interesting one personally. I definitely had my role change a little bit position-wise, and that was something that I had to adapt to and try and learn pretty quickly. I'm so grateful that Brooke came in and she did exceptionally well for us too. But, yeah, that was a challenge. But, again, that was what the team needed when we lost Kayla. So that was a huge blow for us really early on. And to be fair, she was never going to be replaced both on and off the field. So I think Jeff did really well in bringing Brooke. But, yeah, for those first few weeks, that was a tough role change for me. As I started to get a little bit of momentum with it, I actually got struck down with COVID. So that was another challenge I think that our team went through, and we experienced that. A few of us experienced that. And the recovery period and it's really tough to come back from that. I think Chids had touched on it during the season. Like, you're short of breath, you're fatigued so quickly. It was a really interesting experience. But again, I think that sort of made all of us a lot stronger, and it makes the win that little bit more special because we really fought and overcome so many obstacles to get it.
Well, seeing, the photos, post-match, Jeff Hopkins looks so thrilled, and the way in which the players got around him, it's so clear that he's loved and he's such, a leader. Like, obviously he's a coach, but he's more than that. What was his message at halftime? Because in the first half, Sydney maybe the more dominant side. What was his message to you guys about how you were supposed to play in that second half?
I think with Jeff, we know that he believes in us, and you can't buy that. That's the best quality a coach can have, knowing that he has full faith in you. So at halftime, we were aware we were under so much pressure in that first half, and it just kept coming. And we were dealing with it. And again, that's why I'm so glad that we broke the deadlock, because it sort of changed the momentum when we had a bit of a shift. But yeah, at halftime, Jeff just sort of settled us down, reiterated a few messages, made us believe in ourselves, and sort of commended us on how well we were dealing with the pressure that was coming our way. And I think with that, we boosted our confidence a little bit. And then we started to control it a bit more. So we were taking those risks. We were actually trying to strategically figure out how we were going to get past their midfield and their block, because we were actually quite stretched, and we just had a few problems to solve, and he helped us solve them, reiterated that we were able to do it, and look what happened.
Tell us about your goalkeeper, Casey Dumont. She came up huge for you, but it looked as if she was about to be substituted at halftime, and then she ended up being probably player of the match.
Yeah, look, there's no stopping Casey. She's such a relentless person, and she'll be the first to admit she'll have her struggles or she'll have her moments, but you know that she's going to have your back at any stage. So there was no way that she was coming off. If it would have taken something a lot more severe to keep her away from playing that full 90. If it had gone to 120, she would have been there for 120. But no, she's been incredible for us this season. I think everything she's gone through in the last 12 to 15 months has been it's incredible. Her shift in fitness, more so her shift in mentality, and then to be out of the game for so long. Took her a couple of rounds to get into it, and then with all the changes in our structure as well, it would have been a tough, probably tough mentally for her. She wasn't saving every goal that was going in, and her standards are so high, so she would have struggled with that. But yeah, she definitely kept us in so many games, and credit to her, she deserved to win the best player on the weekend. She won us the game, really. As
a midfielder, and one of the more experienced players in the side, how have you gone about, really being a leader amongst, some of the younger players who, are really finding themselves in a type of, maybe the position they play and the playing style that works for them? How do you go about, leading the team?
Yeah, look, I think I've got good people around me. So I'm not one to talk too much. I just try and do my job and do it as best as I can. And look, the younger girls that are coming in, they're going to take my spot. And to be honest, I'm at a point in my career where that's okay. I'm a very competitive person and I'm super hungry for success, but I don't need to change who I am just because somebody else is good. I want to celebrate their success as well. So we've got some really talented young girls coming through the ranks, and if they're pushing me out of my spot or pushing another player out of their spot, that's awesome because we all get better because of that. And I think that's what we really had this year. The younger girls were able to step up and they took the opportunities when people got sick, when people were away on national team duty. So your likes of Alana Murphy, who was a train-on with us last year and then comes in and is a starter at some point during the season. She scores goals, she assists goals. Like, that's awesome. And for me as an older player, I love that because, yeah, I mentioned it in an article. I've been able to be a part of that. And if I can help her in some way, whether it's off the field, on the field, if she's got questions, if it's just, that's what's actually possible within the game and outside of the game, if I can be that mentor for her, then I'm so happy with that.
I've already bought my stake in the Alana Murphy fan club. I'm already there. I'm there. You know, you guys, you know, some people, you know, a little bit far behind. You're too slow. I'm captain, CEO. I don't know what it is, but I'm ready to support it.
Is this where I bring up the FV emerging games I commentated last season?
Josh, okay. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the player, and I'm supporting.
Early Alana Murphy investors. As soon as we heard in pre-season she was smashing it in training, picking out the top corners and so forth. I think we had Melina on just before she did her injury, and you know, she was singing her praises. Actually, let's bring up Melina on that note because she came in at the perfect time, and there's something about Melina's I think attitude that just gives you a bit of a mental edge in games.
Yeah, it really does. And you know what, again, credit and praise to her, the struggles that she's been through this season. Unless you're part of the setup, I don't think the outsiders would quite understand. I mean, she's been training by herself. She's been in the gym. She's been doing physio appointments, all of this stuff behind the scenes to give herself the best opportunity to get back and to contribute. And with that, she scores in a semi-final, in a prelim final, sets up the goal for the winning goal in the grand final. I can't praise her enough. She's something different in the sense that she'll never be an egotistic person. She works hard for everything and everybody appreciates what she's capable of doing. And I mean, if we had had her for the full season, I don't think we would have been in the same situation, just struggling to get into the finals. She was on fire last year and then she's come in even better form in the last, 4 games.
I think there was something that came out in the media in the lead up to the game that Melina's workmates at Bunnings, I think it is, didn't know she was a footballer. They thought she played netball or something. So that's
she'd be a great netballer, I'm sure. She'd be great at every sport.
Whatever she set her mind to. But that just goes to show how down to earth she is, that she's certainly not bragging about it when she's off the clock.
No. The best. I think for us, we're quite similar in the fact that as soon as we're outside of football, we don't want to talk football. We want to be talking about other things that are happening in the world, and we want to know what work's like, and we want to know what's happening overseas, or we're very, very much on the same page in that. So if we can avoid the soccer talk, we're happy with that.
Good and not for the sanity.
We've got so many other things and so many other interests, and I think that helps both of us balance out our football career and everything else that's going on outside.
Now, you've been at Melbourne Victory for a long time, you know, even before when you were at Melbourne City. Before that, you were at Melbourne Victory again. Yep. Is this one of the closest groups that you've ever played with, or is there something different particularly about this group that has been different from all the other times you've played, you know, maybe at other clubs or even just at Melbourne Victory?
Yeah, look, so I had, 4 seasons with Victory initially, and then I went over and had 4 with City, and then I've come back and this is my 3rd again with Victory. So to be completely honest, for me, out of, I think, the 5 championships that I've been able to collect, last year's one...
Do you want to brag about that a little bit more? Now, come on, talk about that 5 champions. We got to talk about that a little more.
No. Just the fact last year when we won it, I think for me it was... the camaraderie within that. And don't get me wrong, we did have a really good vibe this season, but personally for me, I think it was because I had some of my closer friends sort of next to me. It felt different. It felt really different. And I think I contributed, I could give everything that I had last year, whereas this year I was a little bit interrupted as well. So I think in that sense, last year for me was the pinnacle of my career. And this is a very close second. Don't get me wrong. I'll take a goal in a grand final and a grand final win any day. But to do it last year and just to see how excited Jeff was about it, I feed off that.
Well, if people go to Victory games, there's a group of active supporters that follow you around, and there's a banner that comes with them everywhere they go, as well as the Extend the Season banner,
Absolutely.
which we are 100% on board with. There's the Amy Jackson True Blue banner that seems to come to every game. That must put a smile on your face every time you see it.
Yeah, I'm the official president of the club. Casey is the official secretary. Yeah, look, the fan club, they've travelled with us to away games. We invited them to celebrate the end of the win with us on the weekend. And it just goes such a long way to know that there are people invested in us, and win, lose, draw, they're there and they're making us smile and they're supporting us every step of the way. So for me to see that, the fact that they're wearing my jerseys, they've got a sign, there's something that, I don't know, it makes me so grateful to be a part of it. And to know that you can have that impact on someone else is just incredible.
To see that's, obviously fantastic. How do you think we next steps are to, build that and make that, bigger, in terms of women's football and get better engagement and, not make it, such a small group and have it like bigger and, get bigger and better?
Yeah, look, to be fair, like we had at the Melbourne Derby, so our prelim final, it was an away game for us, but we had the men's support there, and that was next level. So I think we do have it. It's just the accessibility, and I think the more games that are played as curtain raisers to the men or on the same time as the men's. Imagine if a men's game was a curtain raiser to a women's game. Like,
exactly.
I feel like then have that support crew there ready, primed and ready to like cheer us on. But I think it's definitely going in the right direction. It's just more that accessibility to it and making sure that fixtures sort of allow for that to happen. Yeah,
we've been banging the drum for extending the season and getting it full home and away because, I think this league deserves it. You got so many players making so many sacrifices off the pitch to make ends meet and make it work and fly into state every weekend and get time off work and so forth. Like it's such a big undertaking for players, and I think this league, now that it's separate and now that the clubs are, investing their own money in the league that they run, we want to see them put their money where their mouth is and make this a full home and away season for next year or the year after.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what the future of the league is going to look like. I've been in the setup. I've just completed season 11 and I look back at it and don't get me wrong, there's been so many positive strides that have been taken, but I still think there's a long way to go. And that being one of them. It's so hard to do your 6 months on and then 6 months off. And even though, you're not technically off, you're still playing local football or you're taking up an opportunity. I think it makes it a bit harder to get that balance right with, balancing family or balancing if you've got a career outside. But then again, if you had a full season, you wouldn't have all those challenges. So for me, it's built me into the person that I am. So I would never want to change it. But for the future generation, I hope that they don't have to learn the hard way like I did.
Absolutely. Now, after this season's finished, what's the plan for you? What do you do in the off season? And then are you coming back to Victory? Obviously, this is for next season 12.
I've signed a 2-year deal. I signed my double contract 2 years last year. So I will have a kick locally, keep myself fit. I've got my family, my friends, all my support group there in Melbourne. So now that I've relocated back from Melbourne, I was in Brisbane previously. So I'll be here. I'm at home. I'm surrounded by my people, really happy. And then I think we'll go again pre-season, maybe September. This is all if the body stays fit, mind stays healthy. That's my plan. And then, season 12 and then again, reassess after that. And I'm really enjoying my life at the moment and I've got a really good balance and I'm settled. So why not keep doing it?
Absolutely.
Why ever not? Amy Jackson, thank you so much for giving up your time and your Mad Tuesday to tell us a little bit about what the celebrations have been like, the journey of the season. I think there's sort of two themes that we keep coming back to with the Victory players is the closeness of the group and the amount of adversity that the team and even individual players in the team have come through in their careers. It's, an extraordinary group of players, an extraordinary achievement to come from fourth and win the grand final. So Have a fantastic off-season. We can't wait to see you back in Navy Blue next year.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Amy Jackson, True Blue, from Melbourne Victory, our guest today on Radio Dub. As Melbourne Victory celebrate their grand final win, we'll take a short break. We'll be talking more Dub on the other side, and we've got a Matildas squad to break down, so don't go anywhere.
Still full of running, and here's Götze! It's Mario Götze! It's Super Mario! He might just have won the World Cup for Germany!
FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Listening to FNR Football Nation Radio.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Messi shot. There is nothing at all that any team in the world can do about that. More than 90 minutes of resistance, more than resistance from Iran. But there is a world-class player on the opposing team, and his name is Lionel Messi.
FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Pickett, she lays it off to Pokuah. It's an absolute peach. Is driving. What a hit from Matildas. Wow. And Sam Kerr has a hat-trick.
Radio Dub here on FNR Football Nation Radio. It's a grand final special. We spoke to Amy Jackson from Melbourne Victory before the break. That interview will be up on our podcast platforms later this evening if you missed it. But Josh Parish here with Pokuah Frimpong, and we've got to do our own breakdown of the grand final. Before we get into that Matildas squad, it was a bit of a heartbreaker for Sydney FC in the end, who probably were the better side on the day, but they couldn't finish their chances. Casey Dumont was with a best on ground performance, and Melbourne Victory they snatched their chances when they arrived.
As Amy Jackson said, speaking about thinking the Sydney FC were the best side all season, I thought that also. I've said it multiple times on the show. Sydney FC, this is the story of football. If you don't put away your chances, that's you can't really win a game like that. I thought that Victory did well, and they really held on with that pressure, and when they had their opportunities, they took those chances, and they made it quite difficult for Sydney to score because quite frankly, Sydney were creating opportunities, but they were in real bursts and they didn't really sustain it, like real attacking pressure from the front three that was connecting with their midfield for large portions of that game. So I think that's why they'd be a little bit disappointed in that.
It's interesting because it seemed as if Victory were really keying in on Courtney Vine as the threat, and almost shifting the whole team to that side of the pitch when they were defending at times. And it left a lot of space for Princess Sabini, but even though she looked good at times, I don't think she quite made the most of the, I guess, opportunity that she was given in 1v1s constantly.
I think that's the story of Princess Sabini's, season. I think at times she's failed to maybe propel herself to that, that step, to be one of those real dominant forces.
Especially when her two teammates in the forward line are Matilda squad regulars now, and she hasn't kicked on.
Exactly. But I will say that she wasn't the poorest of that front three. I thought Remy Seamerson had a poorer game, and she didn't really have anything of stand out.
And she was substituted as well.
Yeah, she substituted quite early on in that second half. So she wasn't fantastic. And I thought Abini probably was their biggest threat. Polly Doran stepped up, and, she really, she was like, I'm not going to let Princess Abini beat me. I know that Courtney Never's on the other side and she's a Matilda, and everyone seems to be going on her side to, attack her. But she did a great job. And Vine, I think at times failed to really create, she was going out players, and she creates opportunities like that. She beat Nevin a few times, but she kind of fails sometimes with that final ball and that final finish, because if you remember, she had that opportunity in the box and she didn't really, it was just one-on-one with Casey Dumont, and she sprayed it far wide on the right-hand side and didn't really get a shot on target where she definitely should have scored.
That was the moment, wasn't it? I mean, if Sydney score that, perhaps it's a
different game.
It's a different game. They might go to extra time. It could be an entirely different result we're talking about here. It could be, oh my God, Sydney FC, another comeback from 2-0 down in a final. They do the double. So it's on a knife edge with these things. I do wonder whether Victory's big game mentality is just a little bit stronger than Sydney's. When you look at their record of making 5 grand finals, incredible achievement, but they've only won one of them.
I think it's a lot of praise as Jeff Hopkins deserves, because he's prepared his team to really set them out with a great game plan. This is the plan we have to execute, and this is what we're going to do in the finals, because we've done this before. And I think he's shown he's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the league. And the way in which his players love him, and he really supports and loves his players, that shows in a football. It shows.
In that confidence in the big moments when they're under pressure.
Knowing that, someone we'll talk about a little bit later, Jeff Hopkins, his players believe in him, and they believe in the game plan 110%.
Yeah, I think that makes Victory such a resilient team in these situations. And the equation has changed for them since they had Melina Ayres back. You have to credit the impact that she's had, because as soon as she's come in, they've looked a different side and knocked off the 3 best teams in the league.
I think, Melina is, it's going to be quite interesting, because obviously she's not going overseas. She's going to be playing in the MPL Victoria.
I believe so.
I haven't got a final confirmation on it, but I assume that's what she would do. I think it'd be hard for her to play.
She usually plays for South Melbourne.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard for her to go overseas, particularly considering that she hasn't played all year. But it's going to be interesting, about her getting into that Matildas squad potentially, down the line.
Well, is now when we
let's some people didn't want to respect the A-League women's today.
Okay.
I want to, let's talk about it. And, what about, because I was thinking about Sydney FC and thinking that it's quite interesting that they've lost, I think, 4 or 5 grand finals. I believe that's the stat. Yep. Or 7 or 9, something like that.
It's 4 out of the last 5. They've qualified for 5 grand finals, and they've lost 4 of them. The only grand final they won was against Sam Kerr's Perth Glory 2 years ago.
Oh, that's at least that's one to win. But
and they were carried by visa players in that game.
Exactly.
In my opinion, I think Savannah McCaskill was a cut above. And there was an outrageous goal from a fullback in Sophia Huerta that day, which was just an absolute bomb. So, They've got a strong squad on paper, better than anyone else in the league. But sometimes in these big moments, I think the more you fall short on that big stage and that big occasion, the more of a almost complex it becomes.
It happens, and I think for me about Sydney is something needs to change for them. Because you can't tell me that losing 4 or 5 grand finals doesn't have an effect on the players, which they've had a pretty consistent playing group that's kind of moved on, the core group of them. Nat Tobin stayed around, and I know they've got the same players really. Something needs to change, and maybe they need, because they said, Mackenzie Hawkesby told us at the start of the season that their goal was to win the premiers and, win the whole league. And that hasn't happened. So you can't tell me that doesn't have an effect on players to know that they feel like they've failed in some kind of way. Does Ante need to, maybe start thinking, do I need to change my game plan? I know they've got a really great structure, but maybe they're just a good regular season team and they're not a great postseason team.
It's hard because they did actually play quite well.
They did.
They didn't play poorly. They stuck to their principles and they just didn't execute, and they came up against an informed goalkeeper.
It's little things, and if in those toughest moments, if you don't play your best football, does it really matter what you played around those, And I think that's a fair question to ask about these teams and, and all kinds of teams all around the world. If you can't play your best football in the most crucial moment, does it really matter about everything else?
It's so tough because I do feel sorry for them because they were the outstanding team. I mean, Melbourne Victory, we were bemoaning some of their play during the regular season. And yes, they had players out, but they were wildly inconsistent. Yeah. And, they had serious defensive woes and there were many frustrations about the composition of the midfield. They managed to pull it together at the right time. But I also think that the A-League Women's is a little bit more prone to this kind of thing happening where a team makes an unforeseen run and potentially are champions based on a season where they weren't the best team over the course of the year, because it's only a 14-game season and it's such a sprint that if you sneak into the finals and hit a hot run of form and there are all these one-off games, like it leaves the competition open to, I guess, being skewed by. And yes, that's the nature of a finals system. But the fact that there's so few games to get into the finals leaves the competition open to being skewed by a small sample size. Does that make sense? No, it certainly does. And, we've spoken about this season needs to be extended if we want to see the best football and we want this place to actually develop into, crucial, for the Matildas and for, maybe if they want to go overseas and stuff like that. And even just for the competitive integrity of the competition. Because if you set a higher standard in the A-League Women's, it means it's a trickle-down effect that everybody's going to play better in the lower leagues because they're going to know they have to play better to get up into A-League Women's, which is the ultimate goal. So first things, as always, they need to extend the season. There's a lot of work that a lot of people need to do, and they need to have a review. And, we'll see what they, decide, what they get out of that review. But we need to also trust that the people who will look at the review will know how to fix the problem. And sometimes I don't think I have faith in them to do that. I think the best part about the weekend was probably the stories that came out of the final and the human moments and the post-match celebrations. And I don't think you can really go past Leah Privatelli giving her medal to Kayla Morrison. What a great moment, honestly. I think someone was cutting onions in the room when that happened. We spoke about it with her, you asked her about, having Kayla, being out for the season. She spoke so highly of her, so it wasn't surprising that she brought her up, but it didn't take away from how special that moment was. And it shows how close that group is, that they are all there with each other and they are in this moment. They are living for the moment, and it's so incredible how close they are and how well they stepped up in those big moments. Isn't it just? Well, it is. Shall we get onto the Matildas? The shadow realm. I don't know what realm we're about to head into, but I'm nervous, Josh. Come on. So the squad came out. Do we have any tension music? Tension music? I don't know. Do we? I can probably rustle something up. Okay. But the squad came out today. Yeah. And we were sort of bracing ourselves for disappointment because this show's been, I think, fair to say, very sceptical of Tony Gustafsson and some of his... What a word to use, sceptical. And some of his selection decisions and his game plan, and the performance of the Matildas at the Asian Cup was a big disappointment. So we were hoping to see more experimentation, more players from the periphery getting a go. There are particular informed players in the A-League Women's competition that we would like to see in the setup. Take me through the squad and your reaction to who's in this team for the New Zealand games. The squad is relatively the same since the last, the Asian Cup. It's relatively the same. The only key
really big one is that Katrina Gorry is now in the squad, but she was also part of the squad for the Asian Cup, but she declined to play, and she's now going in for these 2 New Zealand games. Josh, I'm going to be honest with you. When the squad came out for the Asian Cup, me and you spoke about it, and I said, how are there only like 4 midfielders in this squad? I was confused. I didn't realize you could play football with only 4 midfielders in a squad, when you're trying to play lots of games in a competition. I didn't think it was possible. But you know what? People who are smarter than me think that's possible. Getting Katrina Gorry in there, fantastic. Alex Chidiac not being in the squad. I said, the PFA, the players vote for the PFA team of the season. And they had Alex Chidiac in the team. They had Alex Chidiac in the team. So you're essentially telling me that these other, female footballers don't know football well enough if they think that Alex Chidiac is, good enough to be in that team.
She also won the victory medal.
She did with Claudia Bunch.
Yeah, so there was the Players Player of the Season award was shared with Claudia Bunch, and then the victory medal, the overall award, was won by Alex Chidiac outright. So her club thinks that she's the best player in the team.
And it's quite ironic.
The PFA thinks she's in the team of the season. I think every commentator and
anybody
pundit,
who's seen football in the past few months,
anyone with 2 eyes who understands the game a bit has praised her for her unbelievable high standard of performance. I would argue throughout the season, certainly the back end of this season, certainly in the preliminary final against Melbourne City, where she was the best player on the park and just ran all day and was desperate to win and involved in everything.
Josh, I think the most disappointing thing about this, the team got released, it is what it is. But Tony Gustafsson's press conference, I feel like that's something we really need to deep dive in. Delve deep into it, because the man said a lot of things and I was confused by a lot of things. Some things made sense. Some things I was wondering. I was looking around like I was Mr. Bean in that GIF, and I go, what's going on, guys? Because the key thing I took away from it was he said, this is where we really start to prepare for the Women's World Cup. Now, that's a problem for me. He's saying there's roughly 8 camps to go before the Women's World Cup. So now we're starting to get ready for the Women's World Cup. What were we doing before? Were we not setting up a game plan, or were we just playing for fun? I understand that COVID happened and there was a lot of things that happened. But surely he can't be serious in saying that this is where the moment where we start. Because he also made the point saying that a lot of players now need to go overseas in order to become, eligible realistically to be in that Matildas squad. Well, why wouldn't you tell them this before the season started? So maybe their agents could, reach out and they've realised, well, Tony Gustafsson said, this is what I need to do. A lot of questions. He made me ask more questions than I got answers to.
I thought he also threw Chids under the bus with his answer on that. Saying
there was a level of gaslighting that I've never seen before in my personal life. I'm going to ask you.
Saying that she knew what she needed to do to get in the team, and she just needed to play consistently, and that she's turned down call-ups before to focus on her club career, which I think is stretching the truth. I'd love to hear from her side of the fence on that.
And he did give her the opportunity. He did, say that I'll leave that for Chid's to answer. But he also, he wasn't, he didn't say that in the most positive light, if I'm completely honest, when he was making those remarks.
Yeah, I mean, he started off saying that she's this unique creative talent with an amazing left foot and,
Would the Matildas not need that?
Exactly. I'm thinking, I think we could use a unique creative talent with an amazing left foot.
The problem I also have is that this is everyone in this squad now is relatively, they are kind of more or less going to be the squad heading into the Women's World Cup. That's basically what Tony Gustafsson said. He said he's left room for other people to come into the squad, but he's saying we now need to, dwiddle down, or whatever the word is. I don't know what it is.
Drill
down? Words. To find out who the players are. So, that's only a few players that are realistically going to change. How is that set these players need to play better if they know their position's kind of already set in stone? This is why we're losing players like Ali Green, who's going to play for New Zealand, because there's not enough competition for places in this squad, clearly.
Or there's not a meritocracy in place whereby competition for places can actually function. There is no meritocracy in the Matildas. There is an established hierarchy. And for players who are pressed with their faces pressed against the glass looking in, know that there's anything that they can do on the pitch, short of scoring a hat-trick in every game, to actually get into the picture. There seems to be players who are included no matter what, no matter whether they're playing well or not. There are certain favourites and players who can coast, and there's certain players who cannot convince the national team selectors. And I say selectors plural because I'm not convinced that Tony Gustafsson is the only person with serious input into the squad.
Absolutely.
There seems to be nothing they can do to convince them that they'll be useful to the national team when the Matildas aren't exactly lighting the place up in terms of their performances.
And I think that a lot of people are going to be surprised if they don't watch women's football. If you look on, the results of the last World Cup, you think, Australia kind of got a chance. They could do something. Let me tell you clear as day. The teams that have got better by a long way. Teams like Spain, who were kind of on the fringes, in women's football before, they are ready. They have one of the best players, if not the best player in the world, or multiple in their squad, and they are ready to dominate. I think it's the World Cup, Women's World Cup is looking very scary for the Matildas.
It's a stronger field this time.
It's a very strong field, and I'm feeling very anxious thinking about it because what we've seen is we haven't seen enough, level of creativity. And I want Ante, Ukic to call Tony Gustafsson and start talking football because we might get a level of creativity that, we're seeing.
I think he needs to get in Tony's ear because
Exactly.
It was an amusing moment during the press conference. We should explain because not everybody has watched back the thing in detail as we have. But Ante was asking him tactical questions, and
I was very lost. I'm not going to lie to you. I had to write the words down.
Credit to Tony G on this occasion. He did actually engage with it and was genuinely giving Ante insight and answers. And then the media officer running the presser moved them along, and Tony told Ante to call him and they can get in depth and nerd out about it. So I think, honestly, I think he could use Ante's expertise. But there are certain things that he is in complete denial about.
Yeah.
And that's what really struck me, is that the assessment of the performance in the Asian Cup is totally divorced from reality.
Absolutely.
And he was talking about facts and stats and figures, and he only wants to be judged on...
He got quite upset at that question about the long balls to Sam Kerr, which I think is a very valid question because, in though he's like, people remember the last 10 minutes. Well,
let's just explain the answer first before... So he was asked about, why should the Australian public have faith in you and your game plan when we resort to the long ball to knock it long to Sam Kerr all the time, and it's pretty one-dimensional and unimaginative, based on what was dished up in the Asian Cup against South Korea. And he objected to the factual assertion, but the criticism that his teams play long balls on the regular.
And, I think he's like, in those last 10 minutes, when you are under pressure and you really need a goal, that's when the game plan is on full display because it's when you're in those pressure moments, if you believe in your game plan, you will trust it 110% and you will follow it through. He said in that South Korea game that there were some players who didn't trust the game plan and got nervous. As a coach who's been there for a year, surely you go, that's very concerning for myself that players aren't trusting my system. What do I need to do better? And he's talking about these 2 reviews. Well, those 2 reviews, if they don't change, if the 2 games against New Zealand, if we don't change any of our game style, well, then you wasted your money on those 2 reviews, if I'm completely honest.
The reviews were really interesting to me because he was saying, we actually played less long balls in that tournament. But who was he comparing it to?
Exactly.
Was he comparing it to Japan or South Korea or China? No, he wasn't. He was comparing those numbers to Australia's previous numbers in the Olympics. So, of course, we played less long balls.
Of course.
Because we were playing against minnow teams. We were playing against teams that we were being, 18-0. Of course, we played less long balls than we did previously. And Ante Ukic and ESPN did a pretty comprehensive breakdown at the time that Australia went long and direct way more often than any other team in that tournament. So... it's like when, what it reminded me of? It's like when Apple do those big glossy announcements, product announcements, and they say, the new iPhone
got
is
this, and this.
20% faster than the
I
old iPhone.
do have the new iPhone now too.
Yeah, okay. Well, you being an Apple sheep, let's step aside from that. But what they do as it's a tactic whereby they pretend that the competition doesn't exist.
Exactly.
They say the new iPhone is 20% faster. You say 20% faster than what? Oh, the previous iPhone. Well, of course it's faster than the previous iPhone. You're not comparing it.
I will say.
You're not comparing apples and apples. You're comparing apples and oranges. And that's exactly what Tony G did in today's press conference. And it is totally self-serving, and it's pushing a false narrative and treating us like idiots. And I'm sick of being treated like an idiot. I have two eyes. I understand the game a bit. Exactly. I can see that when the going gets tough, you are knocking it to Sam Kerr every single time. And he brought on Emily Van Egmond in the South Korea game specifically to do that. And he said so after the game. He admitted it straight after the match. So to turn around and say that wasn't the game plan, where you were pumping in free kicks from a halfway line, in the first half, is treating us like we're idiots, and I can't deal with it anymore, honestly.
He said that we won't see, he said that last year was, it was a bit of an off year, and he said we won't see the same things this year as we did last year. I think those words need to be the key phrase that we remember when we see them play in these camps, because he has to be held accountable for his actions and the way in which this team plays. And I think it's disappointing that he hasn't really come down here to watch the games being played. And I think that has a lot to do with his selections, because I think that other people maybe have more input per se, because they do live down here and they do see the games. Maybe they see the games differently to us. Mind you, I'm 22. Maybe I don't know football very well, but I feel like I have some level of common sense. And I think some of the decisions that have been made, they don't pass the common sense test. That's just me.
It was interesting, the sort of... the justification for the double standard, I suppose, where some players have been vaulted straight into the senior setup at a very young age, and now others are being told, actually, you're not ready.
Mackenzie Hawkesby.
You have to go through the junior national teams. And his justification for that, and it makes, I guess, some sense in isolation, it was that they didn't have a junior Matildas or a young Matildas program. They didn't have youth national teams playing games. Therefore, in order to get a look at these players and get the minutes at a high level, they had to promote them straight into the senior team. And players like Jessica Nash come to mind, for example. Yeah. In a normal year, she probably wouldn't get called up. There are a few other examples. Briley Henry is another good example. So that makes sense. They're teenagers. It was kind of weird to see them in the senior setup. Great
and
great
playing,
for them.
against the United States and stuff like that.
Exactly. Like it was striking to see them called up quite so early with so few A-League women's games under their belts.
Yep.
So that part of it makes sense. But then to turn around to someone like Mackenzie Hawkesby, who's 21, the best player in the best team in the competition.
If it wasn't for Mackenzie Hawkesby, Sydney FC aren't the team they are, and it's so clear as day. And I
mean, people might quibble with that and say Courtney Vine's the best player.
Yeah, but I think Mackenzie Hawkesby has the best impact, and I think it's so interesting considering the fact that we lack midfielders. Like, it's literally the biggest positional fault for the Matildas, and because we don't have enough defensive cover. And Mackenzie Hawkesby, she's not great defense. She's not great defensively, so that's maybe okay, but we still lack creativity at times. And he was speaking about, we aren't playing the right ball in our final pass.
We're playing the final pass from the correct area, which is actually a good observation and interesting, because he was talking about the percentages. He's obviously a stats-focused guy, and he was talking about the percentages of, and the XG from different areas of the pitch, like a cross from the byline not being as good as a cross from the side of the box or a cutback.
But you can't tell me that, there are lacks of Briley Henry, Jessica Nash, and maybe even Courtney Nevin, right? Courtney Nevin's in this squad, and she's pretty solidified in the Matilda squad as of late. You can't tell me that Courtney Nevin in her position is more valuable than Mackenzie Hawkesby playing in a midfield position, or Alex Chidiac. And I'm not trying to compare players, because they're all in there for different reasons. They play different positions, but it's when we're talking about the ages, and he's essentially saying to Mackenzie Hawkesby, you're good, but you're just not you're not ready to play at the big kids table.
Maybe next World Cup, when I'm no longer coaching the team, I've moved on to a bigger and better job.
But I think it's so, it's kind of disrespectful, honestly, that other players get a look in and they haven't had as great of a season, because Mackenzie Hawkesby has been one of the 5 best players of this year. You can put her wherever you like in the 5. But surely I know she's on the extended list, but there are some players on that list who I think is quite surprising that they've made it on this list again.
That squad is basically, the greatest hits plus a couple of extras, I suppose. And I don't know whether that's beneficial to the Matildas to call up the same lot of players again that failed at the Asian Cup. Yeah. I think you have to start getting real with some of these players who underperformed at that tournament and saying to, I don't want to single out anyone in particular, but like we've made criticisms at the time. You can go back and listen to our post-Asian Cup wrap-ups if you know what players we're talking about. But I think it's time to start getting real with these players and saying, we're going to try somebody else. It's only a friendly. Don't fret about it. You're probably going to be back in the squad anyway because, there's this big gap between the players who are playing in the A-League Women's versus players overseas. That's the opinion anyway.
Yeah.
But just to cast the net a little bit wider, just to try something a little bit different, just to pick a bit different profile of player, because at the end of the day, friendly matches are for experimentation.
Absolutely.
And the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what we're trying here. It's the same thing again.
Absolutely. And, for me, my criticism after the Asian Cup was that we seem to maybe have a plan A, but we don't have a plan B. We don't have a plan C. We don't have a plan D. We don't have any other letter in the alphabet at times, and it's quite disappointing that a team full of incredible players, from playing from in all areas of the world, our head coach can't create a plan B, C, and everything. So why, I'm with you, why can't we bring in these other players just to test it out and, to see different playing styles? They don't have to be, I'm not asking for them to be drastic changes from, your main core philosophies, but surely have different plans, because it seems as if maybe we'll try, get through in the midfield. We might do a long ball across diagonal ball. Somebody, Caitlin Ford sprints across the line and then tries to cut back into Sam Kerr. I've seen that play a million times, and it doesn't seem to work a lot of the time. Why aren't we trying to get some more creative midfielders in there to change it up and, find that, that missing pass?
I mean, what really did annoy me from this, and you mentioned the thing about players having to go overseas, was the disrespect shown towards the A-League women's competition. But I'm not surprised by it because Tony Gustafsson does not live in Australia.
Absolutely.
He's here every now and again. He lives in Sweden. He coaches from afar. There is just no way, even if he's got a Paramount Plus subscription and he's watching every game, there's no
couldn't
way.
Replay to see, though.
I mean, yeah, exactly. There is just no way that he's as familiar with the players and the landscape and the talent and then the pool of talent that he would be if he was living here.
Exactly, and I think that's why he's got an obsession with players playing, in Europe, because then it's easier for him to go see them. I'm assuming he's been staying in America for a long time and when working for the US women's national team.
He also said they were looking at training sessions as well, looking back at tape from training sessions. And I'm saying, well, if there's players you haven't selected before,
how can you see
how can you judge them? And there was a tweet a couple of weeks ago from friend of the show Sam Lewis saying that basically it was a throwaway line on Twitter. Of course, I don't want to throw her under the bus or anything, but she said if Alex Chidiac doesn't make the Matilda squad, fold the program. And I'm afraid to say we had a good run, but ladies and gentlemen,
the program's done.
We're out.
We're out. No. I think a lot of people, quite rightly, are upset that Alex Chidiac didn't make the team, because why? If Alex Chidiac was put into the Matilda squad and she played poorly and Tony Gustafsson didn't pick her next time, you know what? Nobody would complain. But the fact is, you're now trying to really solidify the squad that you have. So how is she hasn't right now got lined up, overseas contract.
As far as we know.
As far as we know, like that's in,
to be negotiated.
Exactly. So how is she supposed to get in this squad? And I think multiple people asked that, but I don't really think I got a great answer from Tony Gustafsson in the press conference about how these players are actually supposed to get into it, because he's gone about it and, disrespect the A-League women, said, yes, you played. But
it's a short season. It's not that good.
It's not good. Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't really speak very highly of the 2023 legacy, does
exactly.
it? It doesn't really feed into what this World Cup is supposed to achieve if players in the A-League Women's aren't really being considered. So I do kind of hate that Chids has become this, I guess, this political sticking point now.
Yeah.
She's become like
She
the
deserves more
dividing
than
line between the Tony G believers and the Tony G haters. And I think she deserves more than that. I think that's doing her a disservice to make her kind of the lightning rod. And I know I suspect she hates this discourse around her and the outrage and so forth, because it probably doesn't help her national team case. That's the problem I see with this. I guess this team at Football Australia around Gustafsson seem to be so ingrained in their view of these players, and they're so convinced that they're right and everybody else is wrong. It seems like they're in denial about it.
It almost seems as if they're it's sort of payback, because he spoke in one breath about her declining offers to be in the Matildas squad, and then spoke about this, she's got to do this. It's as if it's like he goes.
It's as if the goalposts are being shifted.
Exactly. He goes, if she's available to be picked if we want to pick her. Well, are you picking her because she's not good enough, or because she declined the offer? Or
it was such a strange answer. Like he gave about 6 different reasons that all contradicted with each other.
Absolutely.
And that to me looked like someone who was saving his own skin.
Absolutely.
So,
well, you know what, Josh? We had a great A-League women's season run. We did. Matildas are going to be playing soon. It's okay. I love seeing all these. I love all these players, and I hope they all do well. But I think that our playing style can change. But you know what? We're heading into a new phase with Radio Dub. We've got to start still try to figure out what we're going to do now with the A-League women's season over. And it's going to be good. I mean, I'm excited. Are you not?
I'm excited too. I think we're going to be paying attention to the local leagues a little bit more. The NPL. We're going to be talking about Women's Super League and with an Australian lens, an Australian focus. And I'm excited to see the next phase of this program because it's a long old off season, but there's always women's football to talk about.
Absolutely, and hopefully we can talk to some A-League women's coaches and really talk about the development of women's football in this country.
Absolutely. Well, Pokuah, as always, it's been a pleasure. It's been cathartic tonight, I think, on the Matildas, and it's been fantastic to speak to Amy Jackson as well.
To really lift my spirits, is what I need.
All right, we're going to get Pokuah some fructose and lift her mood and sign off here tonight on Radio Dub. Thank you for tuning in. We do appreciate your support throughout the season, and we'll be back soon with this program with a new lens to look through women's football.